Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. You joined me in Germany. I just flew in and I'm here to visit our friends at Texas Instruments because they have some really cool things on display. Now, we have filmed some great videos with Texas Instruments over the years, and we always use it as a learning opportunity to learn more about electric cars and how they work and the electrical systems that power them. And in this case, I came all the way here to learn about battery management. You guys know we sell a shirt on our website that says, "Don't trust the BMS." Well, guess what? Now you actually can. Texas Instruments is displaying their new EIS module. It's essentially a impedance test for battery cells in a large group. You could use that for, of course, battery packs in an electric car or even stationary energy storage. And there are so many benefits, such as thermal runaway, detection way early, but also things such as state of charge calculation. Countless times we've shown you guys where we park a car at 10%, we get back to it 10 minutes later, it's at 3% because I had to recalibrate. Well, those days may soon be gone. So we're going to be talking all about EIS in this video right here in Germany with our friends from Texas Instruments. Well, guys, I literally just got off the plane. My buddy Andre and I blasted over here on de-restricted Autobahn to show you some cool stuff from Texas Instruments. Now, we're at a show called PCIM, and this is all about power, energy management, and all the stuff that powers it. And it's a perfect showcase to talk about battery management systems and a new way of utilizing cell monitoring. We'll talk about that as we come over here. Join me up over this way because this is the EIS demonstration area. Now, I'm going to get this, and I promise you I'm going to not mess up the wording. EIS stands for electrochemical impedance spectroscopy, and that essentially is a monitoring way to determine the health of a cell, real-time state of charge, real-time temperature through the impedance value of the cell. We have been able to get resistance values and impedance values from cells and other BMSs in the past, but never before has it ever been fully integrated like it is now. This is one of the best ways to determine the health of a cell long-term, the fast charging performance of a cell, so you can actually push it to its max charging capability safer. It gives the automakers confidence to dial up the cell and dial it down at the right time to preserve longevity. It's a really cool technology. You can kind of think of it as a real-time EKG for like a heart monitor, but for what's actually going on inside the cell. We're going to be talking to my friend Brian, who's an expert in this topic, so we can dig into it a little deeper. But I want to give you a quick overview of how this works. There's multiple modules that make up essentially what we're going to be looking at here, but Texas Instruments essentially has their BMS board that you hook every cell into. That's fairly standard, but then you have an active driver for EIS, and this is essentially what runs a pulsed current into the cells, and there's multiple ways we can do it. We'll talk to Brian as well. You can actually use like an onboard charger or even the inverter from the electric motor to do this as well if you want to get fancy, but you essentially will drive a current into the cell, and based off the feedback you get from that current will determine the health of the cell and many other things. Like I said, temperature, longevity, if there's a thermal event happening. And this is something that will just happen pretty much constantly in the background. Every time you drive your car, every time you park your car, it'll just be running there, monitoring everything. It's really cool tech. So let's get Brian in so we can learn about some of the benefits of EIS. Of course, it really comes down to state of charge calculation, especially for LFP, thermal runaway events, and of course, battery aging, so you can dial up or dial down the cell or car's performance as the battery ages. So let's get Brian on so we can learn more. Brian, welcome to the channel.
Hey, Kyle, nice to meet you.
Yeah, same here. And dude, thank you so much for having us over here. I know this is your baby, this is your world.
Yes, yes.
And I first want to ask you, why are we in Germany talking about this? What's the significance of PCIM show?
Yes, PCIM is where we're showing our latest technology for power and batteries, of course, for power. And so we're really trying to showcase our new technologies, both for EVs and energy storage. And of course, EVs is a big interest in this EIS technology.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many new automakers, specifically in Asia and other emerging markets, that kind of want to go as fast as possible.
Yes.
And you can get yourself into some scary situations when you're going as fast as possible and pushing the limits in terms of car's performance or charging.
That's right, yeah.
I think a technology like this is really going to help time to market and also get some crazy performance that I'm always looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
With like insane fast charging.
Yes.
So I want to talk about, I know we can't mention specific automakers, but what's the reality of this entering a vehicle in the near term?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we have been working on this technology for about 5 years now at TI, bringing the technology, putting it into chip form that you see today.
Oh, wow.
Of course, been working with OEMs along that timeline, but we'll probably see the first OEMs come into production maybe next year, maybe 1 to 2 years. So pretty soon.
So we're not far away.
Yeah, not far away at all.
All right. Now I want to ask you, EIS. Impedance is an interesting way to determine cell health, cell characteristics.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the theory behind this. How did you have this idea, and what are some of the benefits? I already mentioned very high level to the view.
Well, and I like your analogy on EKG. I think it sums it up very well, you know. Yeah. And being able, another analogy I like to use is like one of those scales that measures body fat and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You're basically sending signals to your body, just like this does to a battery.
It's kind of cool. Like, why have we not been doing that up to this point?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. It's not really a new technology per se. It is a new technology in the application. And so we've never been available to put EIS in a car because it's just been too difficult to implement. And so by putting it inside of our chips, it makes it easier for OEM customers or engineers to really design with it.
And so essentially, let's say, you know, I'm obviously interested in electric cars. This is really cool for battery storage as well.
Yeah.
But let's say you've got a standard long range sedan electric car, 100 kilowatt hour battery pack. Yeah. What are the requirements to actually put this in the vehicle? And then what are the benefits to the driver, and what are the benefits to the OE that's installing it?
Yeah, for sure. So to put this in your car, it really looks very similar like the current BMS today. Which is that there. And the only addition you have is really the excitation circuit, which will create this current that basically allows us to see inside the cell. So it's again, that EKG analogy. We're sending this current through the cell, monitoring the reaction of the cell, and then seeing what happens. Mm-hmm. And then what that allows systems engineers to do, like engineers designing these cars, it allows them to actually see inside the cell and basically gives them a closed loop kind of control of their battery that they didn't have before. Right now, the methods of doing BMS in a car is very kind of surface level. You're kind of just putting a temperature sensor on the battery. You're measuring a voltage that's kind of basic. This is allowing you really to see how the cells are moving, or how the lithium's moving inside the cells, how the electrons are moving. It gives you that much more granular control.
And how do you actually display that to the end user? I guess in a sense, when you're talking about what's going on in the cell, right? You've got, you know, maybe the population of the lithium going over to the anode side, and it may not be totally uniform. Can you start to see some of that stuff going on inside the cell? Yes,
we can see that, and we use different frequencies to target the thermal runaway, lithium ion diffusion, things like that.
Okay.
And we actually can see in our, with some algorithms on top of the impedance measurements, we can start to see numerous things like SEI layer breakdown, which is a key portion of the battery that indicates its age. Yeah. So we can start to see things that people couldn't even measure before.
Right. Well, every time we view SOH or state of health on a vehicle's BMS, we're like, well, you're just inferring all the time.
Yes, exactly. It's
make kind of predictions. In here, you can actually get like a real.
You're measuring it.
Yeah. It actually could be. There's so many use cases to this, even beyond just putting it in cars. It's crazy.
It is.
Come on in here, Andre. I want to talk about some of the displays that you have here. So the first thing is a demonstration of the current that you're sending to the cell.
Right.
And are you looking, when you send a current, for a voltage response out of the cell, and that differential in time is what you're really trying to measure what's
exactly. The current, we know what it looks like. The voltage is what we're measuring, and we get that difference. That's impedance, and then we can use that in our model.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's what you're basically sending in, getting back. But then it comes down to your models to figure out what's actually happening.
Yes.
And maybe that's more over here on this side. Yeah. Now, I would imagine this would have to be tuned differently for every cell.
Yes.
Or is it just cell chemistry?
You may be able to start using it if you have similar cells, maybe same manufacturer. You can probably characterize it once for multiple cells. But once you start changing the shape, the size, the form factor, and the chemistry, you do have to probably recharacterize, at least at this point. We'll see it kind of change and evolve over time as more people use it. That's where we are today.
Yeah, so you'll go through a characterization process. Is that on the OE to do the characterization process?
Yeah, so we have developed software that we can then give the OEs to then do the process. And so it's a very easy process to do. The full characterization for temperature and SOC may take 2 to 3 weeks or so, but it goes pretty quick.
So does this show how to actually do that? Can we walk through that, like this rough process?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, let's start there, because I think that's kind of like before you get the data, you got to characterize the cell.
Exactly.
So show us how that works.
So what you're going to do first is you'll program the frequencies you want to measure, and this demo is showing you exactly what it's doing. So it's measuring all these different frequencies, and each point is a different impedance. So we collect all this data. In our control GUI, we actually can control the temperature chamber here. We can control the SOC, so we can actually set up the environment of the battery so that we can collect all this data. So think about this. You can, a lot of people are talking about AI, things like that today. Well, you need a lot of data to train an AI model. That's exactly what this is doing. We're training models to basically then infer temperature, SOC, things like that.
Yeah, so you'll essentially take a thermal chamber, which I've shown in many videos on the channel. You could put, let's just say, 10 cells in there, 50 cells, whatever you want to do, just to make sure you have a good average.
Yeah.
You'll run it down -40, run a series of tests. Then you'll bring it to -39.
Exactly. Yeah.
-30 and to work your way all the way up to probably 50, 60, 70 degrees Celsius.
Exactly.
Well into abuse loads.
Yes.
And then you've got a good picture of what the cell can do.
Yes, exactly.
And then this houses all of that.
Yep.
That goes into the logic in the car.
Yes.
That the automaker tunes. And then essentially as you're driving, so let's say you're driving along and there's, you were mentioning some like crazy timeline you need to detect the thermal runaway situation.
Yes.
Trying to like hours before the cell actually goes into an effect.
It's a very dynamic thing that's going on right now in China, but it's like 5 minutes been for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Now they're trying to extend it even longer. And now they want to pinpoint individual cells to detect thermal runaway, which is nearly impossible with what's available today.
Yeah. So you'll have wires to every individual cell. You'll have an excitation process to get there. So you can run every cell through a series of this test. How often is it pinging the cell? Is it every few seconds as you drive?
Yeah, every few seconds. We're actually monitoring in real time, but to take a full impedance measurement takes a little time. So you may be able to give it every 1-2 seconds or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
So you can detect an anomaly inside the cell and be like, whoa, we sent a little current. And like last time we did that, it didn't have an issue.
Yes.
And like the last 2 times we did, we're like, oh, now we've got real problems here. You can then have the automaker tune an alert to the driver to say, bring it to a service center, or can go into a derate function.
Yes.
And that's just from a thermal standpoint.
Correct. Right.
From an aging standpoint, I think we've seen a lot of automakers, and we've been pushing for faster charging in the EV industry. Like I'm always like, I was charging a car today at like 70 kilowatts at 50%. I'm like, come on, let's go. But I think a lot of that comes down to automakers not actually knowing what's going on with the cells.
Yeah, right.
And so can you talk a little bit about how this can help an automaker like tune for faster charging?
Yeah.
That's what I love.
Right. Yeah, so as you mentioned before, fast charging can sometimes damage the cell over its life, especially like if it's cold or something. You may start to damage the cell if you charge fast.
Yeah.
How do you get to faster charging? Well, you need to basically know how your battery's reacting to the charge. And by having EIS, it gives you actually a closed loop capability to actually know the temperature, SOC, and the lithium diffusion. So now you can actually monitor it real time to know, hey, can I increase it further than before? Or do I need to back off? But the benefit is really you can go further than before instead of building in fixed margin.
Interesting. I've got 2 quick questions for you. When you're under full load, whether it's full discharge, you're wide open doing a launch, or you're onboarding a ton of power fast.
Yeah.
Can EIS work when the battery's like, because you'll get voltage sag when you drive out, you'll get a voltage peak when you charge.
Yeah.
It can work in those situations?
Yes. I mean, because we're measuring an AC signal, it doesn't matter how you're charging or discharging. We're measuring an AC signal, so we have complete control over it. So it doesn't have the problems that traditional SOC measurements have.
Right. So you get a little ripple current in there and you're good to go.
No problem. Yeah.
And the last question is to actually run the excitation of the cell. You obviously need power to send to it.
Yeah.
You mentioned there's a few different ways where you can harness the power. And so it doesn't just go to heat at the end. And so how do you make sure that it can stay efficient and also use other functions on the vehicle to start driving current?
Yeah, that's fair. So we do have a reference design for something called a stacked active bridge. It moves charge between 2 halves of the battery. But if you're looking for something already in the vehicle to save cost or whatever for OEMs to save cost, you may use the inverter. It can actually generate a square wave, You could use an onboard charger, just modify it a little bit to move charge around, or the DC to DCs, high voltage to low voltage. So lots of different options there.
And if you have a fully integrated package, which a lot of automakers are catching up and doing that stuff, you can actually start figuring out which one of those components may make sense.
Yes.
Or to just run a separate driver just for those.
And we can help with that. Yeah.
Okay. So that's maybe my last question. I keep saying I got a lot of last questions. How many cells can you wire up in each board? Because I can't imagine you can do like a 200 connection board here. Yeah.
It might be a little hard with 200, but with the 26 channel device, that's 26 channels per chip. So that's the highest in the industry right now. And it does help us save costs. But to answer your question, like most of the cars are going to 800 volts these days, or 2 times 400.
Yeah.
And so we can actually put all of them on one board. Some OEMs are doing that, or we can put on individual boards around the battery pack. So it's just really up to the mechanical structure.
Yeah, and it's the packaging of however they.
Exactly. And I cover this a lot. Yeah.
All right, let's end on a fun chart for the viewers. Let's pull back up some of the data that you can actually gather, so we can talk about what's going on here. Now, this is a pretty extreme situation. I can't imagine a real world where you're actually getting to this. So for the viewers who can't see, blue is 15 degrees Celsius, red is 45 degrees Celsius, I would imagine. Yeah. And this represents each square a different cell inside of a battery pack. So with that explanation, I'll let you go, Brian.
Yes, of course. So all these cells is, say, 200 cells. We've characterized the cell that we're using here with EIS, and then we've modeled it here with temperature. And so we're just showing an example of how this cell is hot, this cell's cool. And so we can start to detect if this cell is getting too hot, maybe entering thermal runaway, or maybe it's just we need to back off fast charging a little bit. And so we can make all this based off of our impedance that we're measuring with the models that we use.
And this is way more accurate than in the traditional sense when, like it would cost too much to put a thermistor on every single cell and every single production car. Yes. So a lot of production vehicles rely on sort of large models that are very conservative to prevent stuff. And that means that you aren't seeing the limits pushed.
You're not seeing individuals, right.
Whereas here, you're getting individual temperature on every single cell where you can be like, oh, maybe our model's saying one thing, but the impedance test is saying we've got a little bit more to give you some juice.
Exactly. You're seeing inside the cell again. You're not outside the cell. It's very helpful. Okay.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm also really excited about this just because LFP is so hard to understand what SOC you're at.
Yeah.
I just ran out of charge recently at 6% in my LFP car.
Yeah.
Not too long ago, and I'm like, this has to change. You can't have consumers doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
You need much closer SOC estimations.
Yeah.
Are you seeing more interest in LFP integrations into this than high nickel chemistries?
Yes, for sure. LFP is always, as you said, has been the struggle, 20 to 80% hard to read.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing with EIS is we actually can see that we're like having the error that we see. So going from like 5% to 2 to 3% in accuracy of SOC. And that's huge savings. That's a lot of miles, or kilometers, whatever you're using.
Yeah.
And so it's very helpful.
Also means you don't necessarily need to hit that 100% full charge all the time, which most people think you can charge an LFP to 100 every day.
Yeah.
It still degrades the cell faster. You just have to start the calibration every time.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas with this, you wouldn't necessarily have to. Would be awesome, especially for stationary storage.
Yes.
Because you can't always guarantee the stationary storage can top balance all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
So I love that.
Yeah.
And then the thermal runaway stuff, we've got to do an experiment at some point in the future.
I'm ready.
I really want to take like a normal BMS and yours and show the differences in real time.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can't do that inside the walls of it.
Might be a little harder. Yeah.
The fire brigade may not love us with it, but it would be really fun to show that in the future. So, it's kind of a cool technology. I love the idea of literally seeing inside the cell with data.
Yeah.
All of the, once you start getting the data from the cell, like there's a million things you can do with
Infinite
it.
possibilities, yeah.
It's really exciting.
Yeah.
It's a whole new world for battery management and also understanding how batteries can work in a car. Brian, good work.
Yes.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Of course.
And viewers, if you want to see this in a car, start screaming at the automakers to throw it in because I really want this in every car and I want to see the data too.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So big shout out to Texas Instruments for having me out here all the way in Germany to shoot this. It's been so much fun. We're going to get this video up as soon as possible so everyone can see what's going on. And I really thank you guys for watching at home. We'll see you on another one again soon. Bye-bye.